Jonathan is really the object of my ideas on the character of a true friend. Jonathan's the one who admits he loves David, and David will never say, not that he doesn't, but he never says, I love you as well. David's the one who has needs. Jonathan's not needy at all. So it's really the characteristics of Jonathan that I'm looking at here. But you're either a David, one who has a need for a friend, or you're a Jonathan, the one who's going to be that person who meets that need. So let's look at a friend like Jonathan. I have 6 character traits that you and I need to be aware of. First one is they were one in spirit, according to 1 Samuel 18:1. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. King James would say they were knitted together. Their souls became knitted together. Isn't that a fantastic thought? Just like a spouse. When you get married, you say, I do, and you take these vows. If all goes well, you're knitted together. Let no man put it asunder. So it's the idea that a friendship that's one in spirit means your lives are intertwined with one another. There's something that just clicks. And you have this one in spirit, kinship, same interests. I think in this sense, when Jonathan saw not only the leadership of David, going out there and defying this big giant and killing him, but when Jonathan saw that he did it with the glory of God in mind, he was just overwhelmed. This is the kind of guy I've been wanting to have a manly friendship with for a long, long time. I think that's what one in spirit or being knitted together in their souls means here. Do you have somebody you're one in spirit with? In your flesh, your compadres in the Lord. Your goal of glorifying God is their goal too. Isn't that fantastic? That's the first characteristic. The second one you'll notice, I think, is there has to be love. He loved him, Jonathan did, as himself. Boy, that's scriptural. Guys are called to love their wives sacrificially as Christ loved the church. We're called to love our wives as we love our own bodies. That's exactly what's going on here between a man and a man in the most righteous of ways. Jonathan loved David. Guys, we are uncomfortable with this, aren't we? To go up to another guy, and I hear from some of you, Chuck Gray, just to put you on a little bit of a soapbox here, comes up to me oftentimes and says, I love you. Wow. I return it. I love you too. And neither of us knows that that's unrighteous. We know it's okay to do that. There has to be love. Not like a man for a woman or a parent to a child, but love nonetheless. I think it's best understood as unconditional love. Chuck and I might disagree on some songs that were played today. We might even agree on some of them. But Chuck and I are going to love each other regardless. Chuck and I might disagree on end times theology. I don't know that we do, but we might. Good chance because I'm a little bit of an autocrat. But Chuck and I are going to love each other anyways. Okay? Unconditional. That's what love looks like. You're not going to give up a friend because the going gets tough, because they're a burden which you thought you could handle, you can't anymore. The third characteristic that I see in Jonathan is loyalty. Look at verse 3. And Jonathan made a covenant with David. Well, that's interesting. How many covenants have you and I made? Well, if you've been married, you've made a covenant. We call it a covenant, not a contract. Jonathan made a covenant with David. A covenant is an issue of loyalty based on love. It's binding in some sense, but it's not a contract. You don't need a contract to have a covenant. You're basically saying, no matter what, David, I am there for you. High water, low water, good days, bad days, mountaintop experiences, the lowest of depression, I'm there. That's my covenant with you. Unconditional love, unconditional loyalty. No matter what mistakes you make in life, I'm there for you. Mel Gibson, been up and down in life. Hollywood star, father of 7 or 8 kids, I don't know what. He's a guy who just last summer was arrested for alcohol and driving, and then just laid into Jewish people in his inebriated state. Now, was there an uproar? You remember, right? How many people came to his defense? Not defending his statements, but coming to him as a friend. Hollywood was abandoning him in droves, which you would expect from Hollywood. But one actress, Jodie Foster, She came publicly to him. She spoke publicly in his favor. He says, I know Mel doesn't hate Jews, but I know Mel's an alcoholic, and I know that's his demon. I know that he has struggled with this all this in his life, but I know Mel Gibson, and he doesn't hate Jews. That's what a covenant's all about. So if you have a best friend, make sure they're going to be loyal. The fourth character trait that I see here is integrity. Now let's turn to chapter 19. Chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. Let's see if you see integrity here. Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David. Well, that's horrible. But Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning. Go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father and said to him, let not the king do wrong to his servant David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. Do you see the integrity there? Man, Jonathan had every chance to just turn the tables and say, you know what, I really want to be king. David's really been a painful friend. He's got a lot of needs. Yeah, Dad, you should kill him. He's really against you. No. He spoke the truth about David. He remained loyal. He remained in love. He remained steadfast. He was one in spirit. He spoke well of David to his father in spite of his father's terror and power and authority and desire to kill David. He stuck his neck out for a friend. I'm trying to teach my kids this. If you see somebody being picked on in school, don't join in. Support them. Stick your neck out. You see somebody all by themselves at a lunch table, go sit with them. It's hard to do. They're not doing it all that often. But hopefully they're learning, and in that wise you keep giving them that lesson. They'll finally soak in, because one day they're going to be the lonely one at a lunch table. One day they're going to be picked on, and they'll need somebody to rise to their defense. Integrity. What Jonathan said to David's face back in chapter 18, he also said outside of his earshot to his own father. That is a friend. The fifth character trait is trust. Another chapter over in chapter 20, particularly verse 4. There's an ongoing discussion here. Once again, David has fled. Once again, he says, what have I done? Jonathan says, my father would never do that. But David in verse 3 took an oath and said, your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Meaning not know that I want to kill him. Yet as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, there is only a step between me and death. Jonathan had a choice, my dad or my friend. Now oftentimes we choose dads, we understand why. But dad is maniacal. Dad is insane. Dad is a murderer. Dad is out for an innocent man. And so he chooses his friend. Verse 4, Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you. Isn't that fantastic? That's a friend. That's a best friend. That's trust. Finally, the last character trait is spiritual good, and this is critical. Turn over about 3 more chapters to chapter 23. It's really starting it down at about verse 15. Saul's still going after David. Remember, this is a 10-year frame. This is a relationship that is hit and miss because of David always being on the run. And David is on the run again. And so in verse 15, while David was at Horesh in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul had come out to take his life again. And Saul's son, Jonathan, went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. Isn't that great? You ever been spiritually depressed? You ever have a downtime in your spiritual life with God? You ever not read the Bible for a while, not pray, not come to church? Did you ever have a friend come to you and try to strengthen you in the Lord? It's rare. Very rare. He says, don't be afraid, he said. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. He didn't realize that he was going to die with his father in battle. The two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and Jonathan went home, but David remained at Horesh, strengthened in the Lord. You have a friend like that?